All right, it's day 3 of our NBA project, and by now we have our intro questions done. Just because mine are not does not mean that yours are supposed to. I just didn't want to give any answers away. So yours should be completed. Our player overview should also be completed, so that means that all of these need to be filled out. So all of these need to be filled out, plus everything in yellow down here. And so if you've not finished those, you need to go back and watch day 1 video. Day 2 video, we learned how to do our scatter plots. So our scatter plot should look like this on the side with our trend lines and our titles. And so on day 3, we are going to work on our probability calculations. So what I would do, and this is just over the years of doing this project, I found this to be a lot easier. So you're going to go up to the top of your tab and you're going to hit duplicate. And then once it loads, all right, once it loads, you are going to split your screen. And so I don't know what is going on. Okay, so you need to split your screen. And now you have your project open twice. And so then what you're going to do is on one of them, you are going to go back to your player overview page. So you should have your player overview page, so day 1 page, and your probability calculations page to open. So our frequency table that we did on day 1 actually goes along with what we are doing today, and you can see they actually correspond pretty well. You'll see that at the top of each section. For points, it has the same exact thing on the top of your section on your frequency table. So what you're going to do is we're going to turn this into our probability percentages. So what's the probability or the probability that each player will score the certain number of points in so many games? And so what we found the other day was 0 games. So what you found were the number of games, and at the top is how many points they scored during them. So LeBron was player 1, and LeBron had 0 points, or 0 games where he scored between 0 and 5 points. So he's always scoring more than 5 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our probability calculator, and we are going to get our actual calculator ready. And we know that 0 divided by 20, because there are 20 games total that we're looking at. And then we're going to multiply by 100, and we get 0. So 0% of the time he is scoring between 0 and 5 points. So then now we're looking at, well, how many games did he score between 6 and 10 points? So we're going to look back over, and it turns out it's also 0. So what's kind of nice is anytime you see a 0, you can just go in and add a 0%. And you can do that for all of them. So we can see over here that these would also all be zeros. Alright, so now let's look at 11 to 15 points and how many games. So he had 1 game where he scored between 11 and 15 points. So 1 game divided by the 20 total games that we're looking at. Whoop, not 200, 20. And we're going to hit equals, and then it's a percent that we're looking for. So we're going to do times 100, hit enter, and we find out that 5% of the time he is scoring between 11 and 15 points per game. So now 16 to 20, so we do 3, because there's a 3 right here for LeBron, divided by 20 points times 100, and we get 15. So 15% of the time he was scoring between 16 and 20 points per game. And then LeBron's biggest number is 16, and that means that 16 games he scored more than 21 points. So we're going to do 16 divided by 20 times 100. And we get 80. So 80% of the time he's scoring more than 21 points. That's impressive. That's over half the time he's scoring more than 21 points. That's a good thing. Alright, so then you are going to do player 2 and 3. And you're actually going to use the same formula for all of them. And so even down here, we have the assists, player 1 had 0 games where he had 0 to 1 assists, so we can put a 0 there because we know 0 is always going to just be a 0. Again, he had 0 games where he had 2 to 3 assists, so we're going to put another 0 there. He had 0 games where he had between 4 and 5 assists, so that's going to be a 0. And then he had 2 games where he had between 6 and 7 assists. So 2 divided by 20 games times 100, and we get 10. So we're going to go 10% of the time. And then he had 16 games where he had between 8 or more assists. So 16 divided by 20 times 100. We should not have any decimals for this. So we get 80% of the time he has more than 8 assists. So far, player 1, LeBron, he's in the highest section most of the time. So that's a good thing. That's something that we want to look for in a player. So you want to kind of see which player the majority of the time is in this section here, because that means that they have a lot of points, they have a lot of assists, they have a lot of rebounds. So you're trying to be in the top, at least the top 2 sections for the player that we want. And so again, you're going to do the same thing for down here. And then for player 1, and I'm only doing player 1 because I don't want to give away too many answers. I want you guys to be able to fill out the spreadsheet on your own. So I am only doing player 1. You need to have player 1, 2, and 3 done for all of them. So LeBron had 0 games where he scored, or where he had 0 to 1 rebounds. He had 1 game where he had only 2 to 3 rebounds. So 1 divided by 20 times 100. So 5% of the time. LeBron had 1 game where he had between 4 to 5 rebounds. So that's 5% again. And then 4 games where he had 6 to 7 rebounds. So 4 divided by 20 times 100. It's 20% of the time he's getting at least 6 or 7. And then 14 games divided by 20 times 100. And so 70% of the time, LeBron was getting 8 or more rebounds. So he was getting the ball back so that way they could go back on offense and try and score. So LeBron's numbers are pretty high in that section. I want you to do the rest of them. Let's say that for some reason your number shows up, or you type in 5%, but there's not a percentage sign. There's 2 options. You can either type in 5 and then put the percentage sign by doing Shift 5, and that gives you the percent. Or you can put 5 and then go up and click on this percent, but then it multiplies your answer by 100. So now I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna have to just type in a 5 there to fix it. So you have many options. I tried to make it to where it already turns into a percent, but sometimes it gets messed up. Make sure they all are percentages because we want them to be a percent. All right, so once I finish that page, so this whole page needs to be done. You'll notice that there's some bonus sections over here. And so if you can actually figure out a formula to make that go a little bit quicker, I'll give you some bonus points. And then also if you can graph this and turn these percentages into the appropriate graph, I will also give bonus points back, which means if you get a perfect score automatically, I'm not going to give you bonus points because the highest I can give you in the grade book is the total number of points that the project is. But if I mess up or I forget to do a few things or I messed up a formula, then the bonus points will help you go back and earn points back. And so I recommend it. The worst that can happen is you don't get the bonus points. The best that can happen is it adds a few points back to your score. So just give it a shot. I can't help you on those sections because it is a bonus, but if you figure it out, um, then that is awesome, and I will definitely give you guys bonus points for working hard on that. And then after today, this whole project needs to be done. So you need to go and you need to finish question 4. So by now, all of this page should be completely filled out. You need to answer all of those questions if you haven't done so already, and then go and answer your final project question. And so this final question asks you to justify who you're going to pick. So you need to go through and tell me why. So like maybe I'm going to look at my scatter plots and I'm going to pick LeBron. If I'm picking LeBron, then I might say, yeah, you know what? He's not scoring as many points as my other players, but he's increasing as the season goes on, which means he's just getting better as it goes. So that's why I'm picking LeBron. Or maybe I would say he's consistent with his rebounds. It's a straight line on my graph. I might also use my percentages and say LeBron 80% of the time is scoring more than 21 points. And so that helps justify it by using that stuff and that information that I found throughout this project. You might also want to use your sums and averages. So you can say on average, he's scoring about this many points a game, or in 20 games so far, he scored 500 and I think it was 32 points. And so that's impressive. In just 20 games, he's over 500 points. That's why I'm picking him. But you need to be able to justify it to me, not just say, oh, I'm picking LeBron. That's not an appropriate answer, and that will not get you points on this final question. So you need to tell me who you're picking, and you need to tell me why you're picking them in about 5 sentences or more, because I want a paragraph. When you're done with this project and you're done with all of the tabs are filled out, you're going to hit submit. And then if you want an extra bonus, which is actually a little bit more fun than the other bonus that I gave you guys on here, go see the next folder in the NBA project, and you can see the instructions on how to do that, as well as a few examples on how to get those points, those bonus points for your project.